Yeah. Are we on? Okay. All right. I'm going to call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. Excuse me. First of all, we're going to have courtesy of the floor. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the committee now? Oh, by all means, come up. You know the rules. Identify yourself, and you have 5 minutes, I guess.
I won't need 5 minutes. Sue Wondolowski, Director of Human Services for the county. DHS address is 2801 Emmerich Boulevard in Bethlehem. Briefly, Council, I'm here today to ask for your assistance in the administrative processes of children, youth, and families. As we've talked about here, and as you all know, it's extremely difficult to recruit and retain CYF employees right now. Historically, it has been as well. And obviously, it's even more difficult when other folks from the county approach our folks to take them and try to recruit them for their own departments. Now, and I know you have an item on your agenda regarding 2 CYF supervisors moving into court positions. Obviously, we have employees who transfer jobs, and I'm certainly not denying the rights of anybody to do so. But recently, we had the court administration approach 2 of our good supervisors to work with the court in court administration. So what is your role in all of this? As you may or may not know, when a county employee switches jobs within the county, by rule, their salary can't go up or down by more than 4.5%. Obviously, Mary Lou Cavalli can give you the more specifics on that policy. So in the case of these 2 important CYF professionals, the jobs they were being offered, I'm told, pay $49,000. Their current jobs pay approximately $52,000. So presumably, in order to entice them away from CYF, it seems that Mr. Green indicated he was going to get a step increase for them. So when I had found out about that, I consulted with the county executive, and we mutually agreed that while employees obviously have the right to transfer jobs, we were not going to assist in the further weakening of CYF. So our view, of course, is that employees are free to come and go as they would like, but switching jobs obviously sometimes has consequences. And in this case, the consequence is making less money than they would be making at CYF. So we have staff internally within CYF who, and with Human Services, who transfer from different departments. Usually, as council knows, it's folks transferring from CYF somewhere else. And those folks, when they're making lateral moves, are not given extra steps to entice them away from CYF. And one of the consequences is that folks also have to wait generally at least 30 days before I will sign off on allowing them to move from CYF to a different division to assist with staffing within CYF. And I have reason to believe that one or perhaps both of the supervisors would not leave CYF if council does not approve the 2-step increase that's being requested. The county executive informed Human Resources that he would not harm CYF by signing on to the step increase that was originally requested. So it's important to note at this point that these CYF supervisors would still be making a few dollars less than at their current jobs. So I need your help. Children and youth needs your help. You get to set the salaries. We need you to send a clear message to an agency that you know perpetually struggles with recruiting and retention, that you will not have the poaching of its valuable employees confirmed at your hand. Allowing this to happen to CYF with your blessing may cause serious damage to a most vital organization at a very critical time. One of my other big concerns, as I said, we have folks transfer internally regularly. That's not the issue. My concern is if council grants step increases in these particular cases, that will open up the floodgates for other employees or supervisors to perhaps request the same thing to leave. Thank you.
Now, what I'm going to say, are you going to be here during?
Yes,
this?
I will be here.
I don't know if anybody has any questions for her. We could move on with the courtesy of floor. And do you want to ask anything now, or do you want to wait until we get into it and maybe you have a question for her? Does anyone have a question they'd like to ask Ms. Wondolowski at this point? Mr. Kusick?
I had one. As part of the process for switching jobs, there's a requirement that we hold the position open. Will that be the case here, and you have to hold positions open for them to potentially drop back into, and how will that affect the department?
I will let Ms. Cabali confirm if I'm misspeaking, but once, the county policy is 30 days. So those jobs have to stay open for 30 days. Because they're moving out of civil service, we're not bound to the 90 days, but we are still bound to keeping those jobs open, both of them open for a 30-day period, yes.
Is that it? Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Just just roughly, and I understand with children, youth, and families. I mean, that's just, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I wish I had a nickel for each time. The state has to have a separate category for children, youth, and family workers, as opposed to the rest of human services. It's just the way it is. It's been that way for decades. And I know in the past, people have tried to do things. I tried to do things where we gave them extra, somehow the executive would give approval to do certain things. And the problem was, and you're right, people have a right to transfer. And especially within the department, and they would want to take these extra dollars with them.
Sure.
And a couple times I tried to stop it, and the union made it clear to me that there was no way that I could stop anybody from taking their money from, let's say, children and youth to aging. And I would assume that's still the case, at least at that end, within the department. But given that, and historically, where are you, I understand the problem, so where are you now with staffing? Could you give me a thumbnail, if you don't mind?
Sure. We have approximately 38 vacancies, which is more than we have had since I started here. Initially, through COVID, I reported to council, we really didn't lose many people within all of DHS. But not only have we had more folks, as typically happens, maybe realizing this work is not for them, but the applicants that we get from civil service are almost non-existent. So it's not even that we're not taking people off the list, it's that the lists until this past month have been just about empty. And just to be clear, I support county employees being able to stay within the county. I don't like to lose good employees. My concern is when employees are poached and made promises, and that if they are given an extra couple of steps, that it just opens the floodgates for continued significant issues down the road.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that I don't know of any time when employees weren't, like, if you want to move, we've encouraged people, fine, if that's what, but I hear what you're saying. Are you still losing people within your department going from CYF to the other divisions when you get enough? I'm sure you're discouraging it, but you can't stop it.
Well, I can pause it, I guess.
You can pause.
But no, in fact, that's not been we certainly have a few people who've come up this year from the second floor where CYF is to the third floor, but not a substantial number. In fact, we have a few openings in other divisions that we normally would never have remained open because CYF employees would apply for them. And we've been able to hire folks from externally, which is also a nice mix.
All right. Well, go ahead, Mr. Myers has a question.
So I understand that you lost 38?
No, we haven't lost 38. That's the current number of vacancies. We had probably, I have the folks send me a monthly spreadsheet. I'd have to pull them for January of this year. But we started off the year probably with around 26, 28 vacancies.
Are you aware that down in the Juvenile Justice Center, they're at 36 they lost.
I am aware that they have staffing issues as well, yes.
So throughout the county, we have staffing issues from one end to the other. So,
Well, CYF is my only DHS agency, knock on wood, I don't like to say it out loud, that we have any staffing issues, which is historically the case. None of the other DHS divisions, Mr. Myers, have significant staffing vacancies or problems.
okay.
All right.
But, you know, just so I can comprehend this and what we're hearing, I think we have a problem countywide, so we need, you know, it's been well documented, if they don't hit numbers down there, that there's a possibility they get shut down, so we need to all look at the entire county scenario at this point. This is becoming extremely troubling at this point to sit there, and I don't like the fact when someone wants to move that the word poaching is being used, and
Can I address that?
shift that, not at this point.
Before we go, I'm going to ask if you believe me, Jane, I probably should have just,
Minutes has been up, so.
okay, you know what, you're going to have a lot more than 5 minutes, I promise you.
I'm done.
Yeah, she's just speaking to your human services. And we'll leave it at that. Any other questions on that? And if not, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
will be here, thank you.
All right, and believe me, now, but wait, Jermaine, before you do, I'm sorry. I'm going to do these 2 appointments and reappointments, and then we are going to jump right into it, and you can have the podium.
Is there any more courtesy of the floor, sir?
Pardon me?
Is there any more courtesy of the floor?
What, any more courtesy of the floor? Seeing none, we're moving on. Okay. I have 2 reappointments. We have the executive has sent us following individual for reappointment to the Area Agency on Aging Board. It's Anne Marie Pinella of Palmer, PA. Her term will end in July 2024.
Make a motion to move forward.
Okay, thank you. And next we have an appointment to the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, Christine Tanis, Easton, PA, term to begin on August 19th, 2022, and end on June 30th, 2024.
Motion, move ahead.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to the discussion regarding court administration positions, and I happily have a gentleman coming up who'd like to speak. And you know the routine too, if you could just
I do.
identify your.
Jermaine Green, District Court Administrator, Northampton County Court of Common Pleas. So first of all, I'd like to address Ms. Wondolowski indicating that the court administrator or my office poached any employees. That is categorically untrue, not accurate at all, so I don't know where she received her information. My division department heads, the Chief Adult Probation Officer and the Deputy Chief, Paul Singley and Marie Bartosh, they receive inquiries about open positions, all right? I don't meet these people. I don't know these candidates. I know Matt Stump because he used to work for me at the Juvenile Justice Center years ago before he went to Children and Youth. So the word poaching, that's inaccurate. Listen, I don't have to poach anyone. People want to come work for the courts because we treat our people good. And that's why these candidates want to come. Now, it looks like it's a demotion because of the pay scale. That's the only reason. The education requirement is lower at their supervisor position than ours as a probation officer. They have to have a high school diploma for the positions they're in right now. They have to have a 4-year degree to be a probation officer, plus years of experience in the social services or the criminal justice field. So we look at it as at least a lateral transfer or actually a promotion. So the only reason it's a demotion and they're looking at the county policy is because of the pay scale, which is another example of why we need a pay study in this county. This is a prime example. We need a pay study. And it's because of this pay scale, they're saying it's a demotion. We look at it as a promotion, and these candidates look at it as a promotion because it's advancing their career in the criminal justice field where they want to be. Now, I knew something like this was going to happen, okay? So that's why I asked the candidates to come tonight, so they can speak for themselves, and they can tell you They were approached after I said, listen, I'm gonna go with the county policy. I can give you one step. In a policy that I don't even think we are bound by, okay? 3203, the county policy, states that the county executive can offer people up to 3 steps if they're a new employee and 1 step if they are an existing employee. So why can't the president judge do that? I'm asking you, and I've asked every human resources director that, and they don't have an answer. But we're not bound by that policy. And I'm telling you we're not, and that's my opinion. And I know there's a legal opinion out there that affirms my position. But I've been playing, hey, look, we will go by that policy. We will do that. And every time I do it, and my people send up a PAN to the Human Resource Department, they don't know if it's gonna get rejected or not because the executive doesn't wanna sign off on it. And they can't process it. Human Resources can't process it. And I wanna be clear, Human Resources, everybody there, I have a good relationship. Mary Lou Cabali and her staff, Stephanie Hand, she processed things, Danielle Mucciarelli, all those staff members there, they're great people. They're stuck in the middle of this. It's not them. And I will publicly say it's not them. So the reason why we send up those PANs is it's a professional courtesy. We're sending it up to get it processed, but the court order, once that court order is signed, in my eye, that's a done deal. But I've been playing with the rules, and I said, look, we will go by that. We won't do any raises above the 3rd step. If I go above the 3rd step, I will bring it to council. If I go above 1 step with existing employees, I will bring it to council. I will do that. But I'm done doing that now. I'm bringing everything to council from now on. All my personnel requests, anything, any movement we have, I'm coming directly to council, and we will resolve it this way. And I told you back in May, I will be transparent in all my dealings with what I do. And that's my promise. But every time we send it up there, I'll go back to it. My staff doesn't know if it's gonna come back. 2 months ago, we had a young lady from the civil division who wanted to come up to court administration. She came up and the salary was the same thing. And I said, we'll do even 1 step, so you're making what you're close to. That went through. So where is the consistency with getting these through? So that was good 2 months ago, but now this isn't good enough? Where are we going here? Where are we going? That's the problem. So the candidates are here, they're qualified, they're more than qualified to be probation officers, that's why we want them. I didn't approach them. They sought out the chief and deputy chief. And the deputy chief is here, Paul Singley. Paul, can you come up? Can you tell council how you received information from these candidates?
Paul, would you identify yourself?
Sure. Paul Singley, Singley, and I'm the Deputy Chief of the Adult Probation Department.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I can honestly say we did not recruit them. We did not poach them. Myself and Chief Bartosh were contacted by them, knowing we had 2 openings, which we've had 4 or 5 openings in the past 6 months or so. So we are looking to fill positions as well with caseloads of 150 people that are on active supervision. We interviewed them. We found their qualifications outstanding. It's somewhere where they wanted to go as far as the criminal justice system. So we offered them the jobs. It's as simple as that. And that's what we've always done in the past.
All right.
And we don't post our positions. Our positions aren't posted, so it's word of mouth. So there is no poaching here. So whoever's spreading that rumor, you can kill that now.
Mr. Green, and I'm going to, there might be some questions. And so whoever the question's for, would you please come to the mic then? I don't know, I'm going to say, who would?
Want me to
Oh, I'll
hold
be
on to
here.
question?
No, he's here now. You ready to
I'm here.
take questions?
No, I would like to ask
Oh,
Mr.
yeah, go
Singley a
ahead.
question.
Then go right ahead.
So, sir, how many positions do you have in you're only supervising adult probation?
That's correct.
And you have how many positions?
We have 15 probation officer ones,
So on DUI.
adult and DUI. Yeah, we have the DUI cases now on one department.
And you are the chief?
Deputy
over all-
chief.
All 15, you supervise all 15 people? Or are there probation officer 2 positions?
That's correct.
And
That's
how many
correct.
of those do you have?
I believe we have approximately 8.
And where are your vacancies now?
We have 2 probation officer 1 positions that are open.
So of the 5 total, you said, in the past year, you filled the other 3?
That's correct. I believe it was 3, 2 or 3.
And if we said yes to this, how would the transition occur? I'm curious. Time-wise, how much time notice do they have to give, or how much professional time do they have to transition from their current position to move into yours? Because it wouldn't happen tomorrow, correct?
They are
Correct.
scheduled to transfer and start on the 22nd, on Monday.
Is that,
That is, yes, they are scheduled to start on Monday.
I mean, this process started weeks ago.
can you tell me the backstory on that? I'm sorry.
Before you get to backstory, a point of information from me. Would they be starting at the rate that your job is now, or the rate you want for them? Let's say,
The rate I want for them.
but right, as of now, they'd be coming in at that rate unless we do something.
Right.
Okay, no, I just wanted to be clear, that's all.
Right.
It's just getting,
But here, this has started weeks ago, because they were offered the position at a lower rate, and I said I could get you 1 step.
On what date, sir?
I don't know the exact date, Madam President.
My only concern in hearing that is that normally if I would leave a job anywhere else to come to you, I would think 2 weeks would be reasonable notice
They gave
to
notice.
transit.
They gave
Madam
notice.
President,
they've
yeah,
already
I believe they
given-
did give
They've given
notice.
Yeah, they've given notice.
Who needs to use? Jermaine,
I'm sorry, Jermaine, yeah, you
They've
guys are
given-
gonna
they've
have
given
to
notice. They've given
police
notice.
yourselves.
They've given notice. They accepted the position.
I assume those are the candidates.
Yeah, they are. And then what happened was, when I said, you know, I'm gonna go by the county policy, you know, you were gonna come in at 49,000, but I could get you 1 step at 51. It's never been a problem before, all right? So they were willing to come at a lower rate. And then, it's my understanding, they were approached to see if they could stay there, but they still said they wanted to come to court, work for the courts in the county probation department.
I have so many questions that I don't even know where to start.
No,
Well,
no, I mean, well, if you have the question now.
yeah, I have the floor. I mean, I don't want to hold anybody else up, but I mean, like, I'm hearing there's this policy that you can't take a lower salary, but I don't really understand how that affects your side of the, that's this side of the world, that side of the world, is that the whole county? I don't understand. I just know if somebody wants to move and somebody wants a different job, they should have the right to have a job.
Correct.
And I'm afraid to bring them up here to even let them
I don't want to
talk.
bring them up right
No, you don't
now.
have
Are
to
you?
bring them up.
I will, they'll have the opportunity to speak if they want to. I'm not going to
I
force
don't want to
them.
compromise them
But-
in their current position.
But let me just say this. I think part of this is, and if I'm mistaken, somebody correct me. They're in a pay scale now, and at some point, we're going to get to the solicitor, because I read the DA versus Stofa, and I've gotten a few different interpretations of that. And I went back to my home rule charter, and I went to because I was, believe me, personnel is always amazing. It's an interesting dynamic in the county. It's always been that. But they're at a certain pay grade now, at a certain amount. They opt to come to you, and what we're talking about here is they certainly have the right to do that, but the job they want right now pays less than what they're getting. Now, I don't think anybody's obligated to give them what they're getting now, but you feel it's appropriate to do
I
it.
feel it's appropriate.
Yeah,
Why
okay.
are we
So I just
punishing-
wanted
why
to
are
get
we-
that clear.
Why are we punishing them for wanting to come and advance their career? That's how I look at it.
And that's
It's
fine.
It's their right
Yeah.
to come if they want to, and they're willing to come at a lower rate. But I feel it's a lateral transfer. I feel it should be.
I understand what you're saying, Jermaine. I think, I've been around as long as dirt, and I still have confusion when it comes to some of our personnel.
There's no collective bargaining agreement here. They're not in a union.
Right.
So I want to make sure that's clear to council as well.
Okay. I'm going to continue with some questions for you because I think people still want to know some things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you still? Oh,
I did have the floor, but I'll defer.
no, keep the floor.
I'll take it back. Go ahead, I'll defer it this time.
Thank you for deferring. I'm going to go to John, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Myers. Ms.
Thank you.
Brown.
Jermaine, good to see you.
You too, Mr. Mayor.
This is an ever-present problem within the county when it comes to personnel changing. I think in this current environment where every department has issues with employee retaining, getting enough
Right.
positions filled overall. I think one of the motivations that most employees have of the county is the ability to do exactly what these particular employees are doing and hundreds before them have done.
Correct.
I remember when I was in office here, the Prothonotari's office had the exact same issue. It was an entry level. They'd stay for literally 6 months and a day, and they were outbidding, pursuing other opportunities. So I think that is not really, for me, a concern at all. And it's very common also then for the management, for the department to come and go, we need to balance the salaries out based on where scales are and everything else. So notwithstanding the concern over children and youth, and Susan would have over that department and losing employees, that is also an ongoing concern, but that should not prohibit I think, council from being able to move forward in support of what you're proposing here. It's a very common. I think anything else becomes just kind of drama and
Correct.
interesting dialogue, I guess. But basically, if you just look at it more succinctly, that's all this is. So I would propose that we just move this forward.
All right, well, what I would like to do at this point, though, John, if I know you made that proposal. There's a couple people that still have questions, and I certainly agree. I think it's not a question so much of can they do it. Of course, they can move, and no one can really, I can't think of anything in our policies that would prevent that. The question, I think, is, and he has the right to jump a step.
Correct.
So I think the question now is, does council want to make them more whole by approving a second step? Because, as he said, he can't do that. But the court, and this is where it gets confusing when we get into the courts, because I've seen court orders over the years that have said we're doing A, B, and C. So I agree with you, John. It's really a matter of they certainly have the right to do it. I'm not going to say they should or shouldn't. That's not my role.
But on the other
Mr.
hand,
Myers.
Mr. Heckman, when I was here a month ago, I told this council I was going to be looking at all the salaries of all our employees to make sure they are paid fair and equitable. And I said I would bring it to council, and that's what I'm doing.
I hear you.
And that's all I'm asking here.
Mr. Myers would like to talk to you.
Clarification from the solicitor, so I quite understand. You want to explain this so we got it crystal clear, please?
Yeah, microphone, please.
I'll start with the backstory. I was contacted previously by the court administrator. There was a discussion about what had occurred and what he had done, and as a result of that, there is a resolution in front of council.
Correct.
I have shared my legal opinion with council, particularly the Stover case, and the request is to be considered by council.
Okay.
And I recognize, just from my vantage point as the solicitor, that this is not unique in any fashion. We have done this before, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Now, so I'm clear on this, not just a month ago, but a few months back. Did we not come here and there's sounds to me like there's some kind of roadblock in your way to get people processed? And why is this happening? Are they within their rights as the courts to delve out whatever rate, to a certain extent, what raises they can give, and or do we have any except to blessed?
If you're asking for my advice.
Yes.
I would indicate unequivocally that we need to remove the personalities from the request.
Right.
We have a
That's my-
request pursuant to our budgetary and legislative function. Let's not get bogged down with personalities.
Okay, so from that, basically from this point right now, they're asking us to approve what they have, and I sympathize with folks at children, youth, and elderly that we have at DHS, but, you know, there's a recurring problem that at some point, the salary study is gonna have to take place, because this is the tip of the iceberg, and I'm mighty afraid this iceberg's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're gonna have to address something at some point. But I've never found myself in a situation where someone wants to move on and someone's telling them that, not that they can't, but they're objecting to it. And as a man who's had few jobs, I think it's a little disheartening to tell somebody that I really don't want you to move. So that's where I lie with this. I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by whatever it is that needed to do. So, you know, I understand at this point right now, it's a resolution in front of us to vote yes or no on it. So like, whenever we're ready to move on, I'm ready to move on.
Mr. Solicitor, if I could follow up, then I'm going to let Ms. Vargo Hefner, I just want to say that now, have the last comments and questions so she doesn't say that I've cut her off. But anyway, I just want to say, Mr. Spadoni, I read your court that you sent to us. And in talking to a few people, I've gotten various opinions. Could you synthesize in a few words, in DA versus Stofa, or Stofa versus, I think it was DA versus Stofa, who won that case?
Mr. Morganelli, now Judge Morganelli.
Now judge. And his argument was that the courts, that as a DA and independently elected, even though we have this personnel policies, and I want you to jump in and correct me because I'm not a lawyer, that his right to do that superseded the county executive's human resources department administration to say no. Or please, if you could, and you don't have to get into it.
I'm trying to narrow it down. I think the fact situation here is the resolution and the request from the court administrator. I think the fact pattern could be much different if he came to council and said, I want to amend the budget, I need more money.
Well, that's it, and that gets to the nub of it, Mr. Solicitor. And excuse me,
That's
but I know he can do a step. Now, when I'm reading this decision with Stofa DA, I got the impression that while technically people come to us if they want more than a step, and they certainly have to come to us if they want more money that's in the budget. Like if he said, I'm going to need X amount more, he'd have to get that approved. But it sounded to me like the DA was told, hey, if you have it in your budget and you can afford it, no one can tell you what to do or not to do when it comes to giving money to your staff. Am I really off base on that?
In the interest of full disclosure, there will be a presentation, I suspect, from our district attorney who's here.
Okay.
And I told him on the phone almost exactly these words. If it's within your budget, we can't tell you how to buy legal pads or carpet your office. He has authority within his budget to expend money as he deems fit.
Including personnel.
Including if he has the money. Now, if he needs more money, he needs to come back to council.
So in one respect, this resolution may not even be necessary.
But I said,
understand.
because I want to be transparent.
Yes, you are.
I'm making it necessary.
Okay.
That's Mr. Ekman. That's
But
why wanna do that.
I just want clarification.
Right,
Because as I
right.
said, I've never really nailed down our personnel policies over
Right.
many, many years. I mean, I understand, we have it in front of us, he'd like a vote on it, he's put it
Yes.
to us. I have no problem with that, I get the procedure. But looking forward into the future, that's something that could possibly come up again and again, and it might come up again with the DA tonight. And we get into this, what is it independently elected county agencies can do regarding their staff or anything else, even though the charter may say this or that. And that, I think, you've been around, that has always been a bit of a soft ground.
In answer to your question, I can almost guarantee you that we will confront this again.
Well, we're confronting it tonight. All right, thank you, and I appreciate it. Now, before you go, does anyone else on council have any questions? John, I saw you put your hand up. All right, does anyone else have anything? And if not, I am going to go back to Ms. Vargo Hefner.
Do you have the money in your budget to do
I
this?
do. I
Thank
do,
you.
Madam President.
Oh, you just did that on purpose. You just did that on purpose to make it sound dramatic, and then you had a quick
You
question.
know what, normally, you're
Right.
right, and Mr. Brown's point is well taken, taking the personalities out of it and just to the facts. We'd always ask, do you have the money? And so that's the issue, but this has
Yes.
become a thing, so.
This gets into
Doesn't need to
more
be a
than
thing.
that. Now, I'm going to offer, if you don't have to, I mean, if the people that want to transfer wish to speak, you may, but you don't have to.
I spoke for them.
That's fine, then. I mean,
Can I jump in here? I'm very concerned about their
I
privacy
understand.
rights as employees.
That's why I was
Refrain from that.
repeated.
Yes.
I thought maybe they missed the part of courtesy of the floor, which they could, but I wanted to be sure they had the right.
That's it.
All right,
He's telling me to move on.
all right. We had a motion to move this to tomorrow, and Ms. Brown, your motion still stands to move it on? All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Green. There's no other
He's not on the
question.
committee to make that motion.
I can. I am.
He is, and Mr. Myers did it. So, thank you, Jermaine. That's
you.
it. Thank you for your presentation. All right, next on the agenda
Mr. DA's.
is the district attorney, who is here tonight, and he has a similar, but a little bit different resolution.
Commissioners,
Mr.
good
DA.
afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to hear me. I provided you with a packet, and I'm not sure what, if any, of it you were able to read, because there was a lot to digest. I was actually going to wait till the new budget came out to give you the survey that we conducted. But in an effort to be transparent, I'm coming before you quite simply to try to incentivize and give some type of longevity bonus. I don't like the word bonus, but I can't think of another word, to the existing district attorneys that are in the office. We are a few ADAs down, and I attribute that, interestingly enough, more, this is a transient job for most people, a full-time job anyway for most people. And the issue isn't as much us losing people as it is there are no statewide applicants, which is why I provided to you in the weekly digest of inquiries given by the Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association, of which I sit on the board of directors. You can see that just in that alone, there's 26 or 27 district attorneys' offices across the state that are looking for people. And they are the only, that includes only the ones that are advertising in the PDAA weekly digest. A lot of them have given up, frankly. Philadelphia isn't included, and I'd say the number is probably more like 75% or 80% of the district attorney's offices. So here I stand before you to try to incentivize, so to speak, the district attorneys. And it is not as much to keep them as it is to show them my appreciation for the workload that they've been taking on. They've all done yeoman's job with extra jobs. They have taken on the jobs of the positions that are vacant. It's a 24/7 job. It includes all on-call. It includes mental health court. It includes private criminal complaints. It includes several side jobs, the unit, in addition to just the units they're in. So I thought this was kind of novel, at least for the district attorney's office, to spread the money that we have saved, I guess you could say, from not having people in the office. I had an opportunity to talk to Nick Devaney, who is my assigned person from fiscal, I guess. And I have the money in my budget. I provided you with the survey to just show you that just right out of the chute, in spite of the number of cases that Northampton County handles, we were less than many of the other Class 3 counties to begin with. And county detectives is way below what the rest of them are. So I kind of gave you all this information as a backdrop to my request in order to be transparent.
All right, let me just say then that also, I just want to know, I asked the Human Resources people to be here. If any of you, like whether it's the executive or Ms. Cavalli, if at some point, if there's something you want to add or speak to, just get my attention and I'll call you up. But I just wanted to let you know that. All right, questions? This is Vargo Hefner.
I don't see the study that you referred to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave you a salary survey. It's there.
Oh, okay, so I don't have it here in front of me, but I have it.
I'll be raising this again, I'm sure, that when the
Okay, I'll
budget
take a
comes
look
up.
at it
Yeah,
then.
it will, yeah.
17 DAs, how many total positions in your office?
I think fully staffed were 23.
So this is the complement of, you're missing 5?
We're not down 5. I'm not asking for this for everyone, not asking it for myself. I'm not asking it for my first assistant. We have another soon-to-be assistant, hopefully, waiting to get his bar results. I'm not asking this for everyone.
Okay. And you have the money in your budget?
I do,
I think you said that, but I have to ask.
yes.
Thanks.
Other questions? Mr. Myers?
So this seems to be falling on just your district attorneys. Now, yes or no, do you have the ability to pay anybody else that may be in your office, or are they under a different bargaining unit?
Yeah, the district attorneys are non-union, so I can do it with them, not with the union personnel.
Okay. I was just curious about that because I see you doing it here. I was just wondering if you're coming back to us later with other staff, so that's why I was asking that question. Okay.
No, hopefully not. No.
Ms. Kusick?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Certainly, there's no shortage of attorneys. I guess, my question is specifically, why are we having recruitment and retention issues as it relates to these positions?
Yeah, fantastic question. This started as a result of the pandemic. I don't know that it's a corollary to that, but we literally have, and this is across the state. It's a much more critical stage at other DA's offices, but it's gotten to the point where the District Attorneys Association is actively recruiting. Now that weekly digest of inquiries that you see would normally be completely empty or have one on there. That's how quickly these jobs were filled. And I do not know the answer, but the district, it might be with the way law schools are being taught now, but that would just be a guess. But the recruitment, we're attempting a recruitment, and we've been doing that statewide for some time now. But honestly, the number of applicants coming out of law schools is almost non-existent now.
Where do they go?
That's a great question. I don't know whether they're working from home, taking jobs that work from home, whether they're going to private business, law firms, things of that nature. But I don't really know the answer to that. I don't really know that. I just know that we and almost every other DA's office in the state, they're really hurting in the very small counties because they don't even have that many people go to law school in those counties. But they're just not coming forward. I truly believe this will pass. I do. I mean, the pendulum goes from right to left, and I've seen that over my 40-some years, but it's just in a kind of tough state right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Hack, what is I guess you can decide, but what does a starting ADA get?
63,000?
Okay. All right, if there are no other, go ahead.
Motion to move forward.
Motion's made, and
Thank you.
tomorrow night it'll be.
I am.
Thank you,
And I
folks.
think
Appreciate it.
Before we,
Okay, yep.
yeah, no, thank you. No other questions? I think, certainly we have to the committee, it's been pointed out. It's been pointed out that we have the power to do, we can do this. I guess now it comes down to should we do it? And do you want to do it as council? Do you want to get involved? So I think that's about as clear as it can be. Anyway, if there's nothing else for personnel, I'm going to ask for an adjournment. Okay, we are adjourned, and I gladly hand it over to Ms. Vargo Hefner.
Finance Committee will begin. Is there any courtesy of the floor? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Good afternoon, members of council. Steve Barron, 2239 Lincoln Street, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, 18017. It's good to be here. I'm stepping up today to speak with you. This is not on your Finance Committee agenda, but it is on your agenda tomorrow night. So I wanted to prime the pump, give you a little information for research in relation to the LRTA. So County Council, as you know, is considering a LRTA for what we all commonly refer to as the Dixie Cup property. County Council has proposed a more traditional LRTA to the ones that were passed by the Wilson Area School District and the Borough of Wilson. We all know that. These ordinances are considered laws, but the LRTA passed by any taxing authority must work in conjunction with the Commonwealth's uniform assessment and taxing laws. Both the borough and school district laws do not conform to the uniformity. In this case, as according to the developer, they needed the county to be on board. So when permits are issued, as we do in every other case, we would not be coming out to look at those changes or those modifications to the building so they get the maximum amount of time and the maximum LRTA benefit. That is not how a LRTA works. Legally, the county cannot agree to this, and we will not abide by it. We will follow the laws of the Commonwealth, and when a permit is pulled for this property, regardless of the LRTAs passed by the borough or the school district, we will come to measure to ensure uniformly accurate assessment that is within the laws of the Commonwealth. Council's LRTA proposal further complicates the matter as it gives a tax incentive that is not in line with the current passed and enacted laws of the borough and the school district, causing a nightmare for the assessment division to wade through when property documentation and documenting their work and activities gets put into our computer system, which allows for the uniform assessment. As of right now, if and when a permit is pulled at the Dixie Cup property, we will attempt to measure the work that is done based on the permit. If we can't access the property, we will estimate, as we do in other cases, the work done based on the permits and plans submitted and upon and update the assessment, regardless of what this borough and school district laws say. To which, if the property owner at that time wants to engage in an appeals process, which is well documented in the law, they can do so. However, the current proposed LRTA is ill-advised in my opinion, as you have conflicting ordinances the second it passes, and it creates a nightmare scenario for uniformly assessing the building and the property, which those conflicting ordinances and expectations can hurt potential buyers or the tenant at the site in the future. In my capacity as Director of Fiscal Affairs tasked to oversee the Assessment Division, I'm advising Council to reject this LRTA to avoid the nightmare these conflicting laws will create. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at courtesy of the floor?
I just very briefly, since this is the Finance Committee, I thought a good time to review where we've been and where I see us going. This year, we were able to cut taxes. When you look around, all the other municipal bodies in the area, very few have been able to cut taxes. And that's because working together, we have had excellent fiscal and financial stewardship of this county. Speaking of that, speaking of our fiscal and financial stewardship, when we closed the books, we were nearly a $50 million fund balance. So we cut taxes, we had a nearly $50 million fund balance, and your audit just gave us the cleanest audit rating that you can have. That is the fiscal and financial situation in Northampton County today. That's where it is today. Now, we all can be excused for being on a bit of a sugar high when it comes to doling out money. We had CARES Act money, millions of CARES Act dollars. We have millions of American Rescue money, and we did and are doing great things with that money. But that was money that came to us from the federal government. What I think we need to be vigilant about when you hear special pleas, and I'm not referring to these particular special pleas, that these special pleas that are in front of you now will not cause our fiscal or financial situation to be deleteriously affected. They're not material to the bottom line, but it is a potential concept, a potential slippery slope to not having as strong of finances as we have, to not being able to, at a minimum, keep taxes level as we move forward, because we're not talking about federal money anymore. You're talking about general fund money, which is raised with our property tax. And I just thought that it's a good time to have that conversation, to freeze in time today what our position is, what we can do, what we can potentially do in the future, and to think about all of the special pleading when it comes to general fund money. Thank you.
Any other courtesy of the floor?
Hi, Mary Lou Cabali, Director of Human Resources. I just wanted to follow up on the previous meeting, just to clarify the process of human resources, so I think I could.
Could you lower the mic? I can't even hear you right here.
Better?
Much.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify the process of human resources when processing things such as transfers. So when human resources is notified of the change, we calculate the new rate or the new salary for the transfer based on county policy 3.203. And it depends whether it's a promotion or a demotion, which is determined by the salary scale that you're going from and going to. That is the mechanism for an employee to transfer, and that's the salary that they are given. The policy allows for exceptions, and it specifically says that the county executive has to sign off on those exceptions. There have been occasions where the county executive has signed off. In this circumstance that we're talking about, he chose not to for the reasons put forth. So I just wanted to clarify that that was the rule that Human Resources is following. Okay.
Thank you.
Richard Santee, Assistant Solicitor, 669 Washington Street, Easton, PA, 18042. And in the context of the Finance Committee, to follow up on what you heard, but I think it's important for council to hear this too, that the solicitor gave advice, which I agree with and appropriate, that you have to consider what the facts in front of you and the request on its face. The requests were made to the proper body, county council. I've also heard the solicitor, and I agree with him. When it comes to powers of the purse, county council is supreme. Judges, district attorneys, controllers, county executives, when it comes to the people under them, the county workers, county policy applies to county workers. If state law supersedes the county policy, then that salary, the county policy doesn't apply. That's why judges are paid at a state rate, DAs are paid at a state rate. When it comes to county employees, the county policy governs. And there is no right to a judge, a district attorney, or any other official in the policy to give a raise, a step increase for a transfer. This is not a new hire. You've been given information about different steps that can be given depending on what the movement is. A new hire, promotion, transfer, demotion, those words were used interchangeably. I just want to make it clear to this council that from my perspective as an assistant solicitor, these requests are for county council's purview. It acts as the salary board under the county code. And that the decision involving then District Attorney John Morganelli and then County Executive John Stofa, the district attorney lost on all of these substantial legal arguments. Judge Daly ruled specifically that he did not have independent authority by virtue of his office to set salaries. He did not rule that as a member of the executive branch, he could set salaries because the council was invading on his province as from a legislative body into the executive. What the issue was, the employee manual had a gap. It didn't address the specific fact, which was a DA offering assistant district attorneys step increases in his office. There was no transfer, movement, or promotion involved. Very different circumstances from the request you heard tonight. And the only reason I want to come up for purposes of courtesy of the floor and finance is to just reiterate that when it comes to requests that deviate from county policy, that's council's purview. This is council's job. That's why they're in front of council. And any opinion to the contrary, that's the greatest power this council has. And I just wanted to raise that to the council's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other courtesy of the floor? Okay, moving on, we do have a presentation from members of Integrity Health. Before that begins, I just want to note that Ms. Zirinsky is present by phone and that she has been during the personnel meeting as well. Ms. Zirinsky, if you do have questions, just shout out and I'll acknowledge you. Thank you.
So, Council, before Mr. Barron introduces the gentleman from Integrity here today to make this presentation to you, I believe some of you, if not all, will recall that I have previewed to you that we have done a survey of our employees with respect to a proposal like the one you're going to hear tonight from Integrity. And it was overwhelmingly popular among our employees. And it was, and I shared with Integrity that that was going to be one of my guiding lights with respect to whether I would continue to advance the proposal that Integrity is going to make to us. And so overwhelmingly popular with our employees. And I would have to say then, I told Integrity the next benchmark that would need to be crossed would be county council, not just merely because county council will ultimately have the power to approve and fund any health services that we provide for our employees, but because this is such a serious and important matter. County council's advice and consent would be critical with respect to me moving forward to propose this. And finally, I want to thank Integrity. They brought this idea to us probably almost more than 4 years ago now, and they kept at it and they stayed patient and they kept working with us. And the fruits of that communication you'll begin to see tonight. So I'll have Mr. Barron introduce them now.
Like the county executive said, we have been in this process for approximately 4 years. The idea of having a county health center for our employees, as is done in some other counties, is a little bit unique. It interrupts the system of healthcare to the benefit of the county, and it gives the employees a great benefit. Integrity Healthcare is going to explain that process to you. If you have any questions for them, they'll be here. There is also a video that I could not get to load due to the firewall for some reason. I apologize. But their website and their is in your packet. You'll be able to go online and look at that. They have some great videos online for further explanation and demonstration. But without further ado, I'll have them come up here and go over their slides with you and talk a little bit about what they can offer the county.
Madam Chair, Commissioners of the Council, thanks very much for giving us this opportunity to speak about what we believe the future of healthcare to be. I'm very glad that I brought some of our key team members here, given the fact that you haven't yet seen the video, although let me reiterate that I think that would be very helpful. Go to partnershiphealthcenters.com and pull up a video tour of Somerset counties.
Sir, you need to state your name, sorry.
My name is Douglas Forrester. I'm Chairman and CEO of Integrity Health.
Could you repeat that website again, partnership?
Yes, the web address is partnershiphealthcenters.com.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on the website, you'll see about a 4.5 minute tour of the Partnership Health Center for Somerset County, New Jersey, a few miles east of here. And I think that you'll find it attractive. I'm confident that you will. Nothing is quite like seeing in terms of getting a sense of what this can mean for your employees. I have a couple of our key team members here. I have Mark Caliguire, who's our VP of Government Relations, and I also have one of my board members and Chief Physician Executive, Dr. Joseph Calabro. I thought it was important for Dr. Calabro to join us in case there are any clinically related questions. He also happens to be a good Pennsylvanian. His mother used to be the superintendent of schools up Scranton way. And I don't think it'll embarrass him to say that his family owns the Circle Drive-In up in the area, which has become rather famous. It's been so for a long time. But it provides actually a segue to talking about healthcare, because one of the things that I found remarkable, as Dr. Calabro, Joe, related it to me, is that during the pandemic, when everything was closed down, there were so many public events that could not take place indoors, like high school graduations. Well, his Circle Drive-In became a venue for that. It became an open-air sanctuary so that people could have those very important social celebrations. And the reason why that is relevant to healthcare is because one of the interesting things that we found with regard to our own role in serving our public employer clients is that during the pandemic, a lot of people found the partnership health centers, which are dedicated to them, dedicated, in this case, if we have the privilege of doing business with you, to your employees. They found that to be a sanctuary. It was guaranteed access to very robust primary health care, and it made all of the difference to them. Often they found that their providers had closed down because they couldn't provide staffing, they couldn't provide the protective equipment necessary. And we found that nationally, 38,000 providers closed down during that period of time. So providing guaranteed access to healthcare, particularly primary healthcare, is a far better place. It's a wonderful thing, we believe, for public entities to do for their employees, and I think that the county executive's reference to the survey bears that out. Now, if I can handle this appropriately, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get a movement of the slides, and if you'll follow along. I'm not sure how this translates in terms of the screens above, but if you'll turn to the what is actually. In terms of putting it on the screen?
It's on the screen there, yeah.
Right, but it doesn't seem to change on the screen.
Oh, well, that's why. Sorry.
Oh, not a problem.
Get Aileen over there, she knows how to do it. Get Aileen over there, she'll do it.
May close this out. Oh, jeez, sorry.
That's all right. If they have hard copy, we can follow along there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good.
Aileen, do you think you could handle that?
If you have hard copy, which I believe you do, there are a few slides that I think are worthwhile.
Let the boss handle it.
Thank you. I introduced a couple of the members of our team already, and there are others that are listed, and I hope that you'll have a chance to meet them at some point in time. But it's important for me to highlight the fact that Integrity Health is a health information technology and primary care delivery company. We are not an insurance company.
Use the arrow keys.
The arrow keys? Well, I'm not finding success with the arrow keys. But let me, perhaps this little indicator will work. There we go. Does that work? Look at that. All right. Well, I appreciate your patience. The definition of the company is that we are unique in the industry in the sense that we don't have any economic conflicts of interest. We are not brokers, we're not an insurance company, we're not a hospital system. We have one purpose, and that is to come alongside self-funded public employee plans, such as counties and school districts and municipalities, in order to empower you to work the very best arrangements for your employees and healthcare. And I have done a fair amount of speaking around the country. I used to run a large state health benefits plan in New Jersey, 1 million lives. And often I would speak to executives of insurance companies or actuaries or brokers or CFOs or public leaders. And I would say, why do you have a health plan? And often there's a deer in the headlights look. It's like a question that, they felt they should be able to answer. But I would get answers that would be, well, we've always had a health plan, that's why we offer it, or it's a union negotiated event, we have to do it. Sometimes if they had lunch with an actuary, they might say to recruit and retain good employees. All of those things are helpful and true, but they don't go to the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is that the reason why so much money is spent by management, by a public employer or any employer, is to promote health at work and play in order that people can be productive at work and play. The reason that dependents are covered by a health plan is to make sure that employees are able to focus on the work at hand. That simple proposition of managerial policy is often forgotten, but it's at the very heart of what our model is all about. Now, let me quickly say that one of the strengths of our model is that we can come alongside your health plan without changing anything about your health plan. If I came and proposed something that would require your employees to do something differently, be a tough sell. So what we're talking about here is putting a partnership health center down dedicated to Northampton County employees, not open to the public. And it has a very robustly defined series of primary care services, doctor visit, lab, x-ray, mental health, pharmaceutical, physical therapy, chiropractor. One location, under one roof, led by a medical director, integrated services, same-day appointment, no copay. There's nothing like it anywhere. And the reason I reference the status quo of the healthcare system as a square wheel is because all the pieces of it, as you would notice, are there, but we don't think they are configured properly. And the reason we don't think they're configured properly is because the way in which they're configured is absent a home base of care. And the home base of care is the Partnership Health Center, which is the axle around which all of the pieces of a health plan can more easily move for the purpose of promoting best health outcomes. Everybody likes big networks. Everybody likes discounts that are associated with them. But there's nothing in the data that would show that just because someone has a big network or good discounts means that that is actually promoting health. And really, that's the only way you can save money. So our purpose is focused well on promoting health outcomes, both using the primary care facility as kind of a home base, but also reaching into the health plan on a voluntary basis to make recommendations about care coordination and effective care. Now, this references a traditional Model T, and I'm trying to underscore the fact that I think that the current medical delivery system in the United States, by and large, although I understand why it has grown up the way it has a flat tire. It doesn't allow for an efficient deployment of resources which are badly needed. Fortune 100 company initiatives are underway because they cannot find an effective healthcare delivery system among the major carriers. There's a tremendous conflict going on within the industry. Hospital systems have entered the fray. The traditional carriers are part of the struggle, but larger companies are trying to create their own structures because, generally speaking, the traditional plan doesn't work. There's a lack of data and financial transparency. The data systems are fragmented, and often even the best doctors cannot get all of the information that they need to provide best care for their patients. There are economic conflicts of interest that are rife in the industry, and what we found is that there is often an unfortunate relationship between economic conflicts of interest and less than optimal care. And what we're trying to do is to facilitate, for the sake of our clients, and we have a number of clients in New Jersey. We've been around a long time, more than 12 years, serving public entities. We've never lost a client, which is important to know, particularly in the public sector. And the reason why is because their employees like it, because of the immediate access to care, and a home base of care that's voluntary. And the employers like it because of what it does for their health benefit plan budgets. It drives them down. We bend the cost curve in your favor. The largest line item other than salaries is healthcare. And that is going to be unsustainable before long because of the way in which we believe the focus has been taken off delivering best health outcomes. Our Partnership Health Center is meant to communicate the fact that healthcare is not a commodity. It's a person-to-person engagement of primary care physicians. Now, Dr. Calabro, as our chief physician executive, is the one responsible for overseeing best practices among all of our health centers. So all of the medical directors, which we have one in each health center, report up to him. He has a much longer resume and much more distinct a resume of distinction than time that we have to talk about it. But suffice it to say that he used to run the U.S. Army's Western Division of the health plan in California, Oregon, and Nevada. He's been involved with particularly emergency medicine for many years, has trained many of the ER physicians in the tri-state area. And the reason that's important is because when you see the brief video, you will hear him speak about why he likes this model. And in order to give that opportunity now, because I think it's worth emphasizing even when you see it later, Dr. Calabro, would you be willing to share why you think it is so important that primary care be the medical home base?
Thank you, Doug. And per protocol, Dr. Joseph Calabro, since I want to make sure I have the right protocol and the right time. Thank you very much, and Doug, thank you. The Partnership Health Centers are very different from what the traditional marketplace is. I grew up in the Scranton area, went to the University of Scranton, and very much of the same fabric of the general area. When I left and I was in the military, I was traveling all over the world and learned the military governmental model of center, distal that was going on with various different levels of care. After I got out, I was recruited to New Jersey to start some of the trauma systems, and then met Doug and got involved with the program with Integrity Health a number of years ago. In that model, it's a one-stop place, so it's a primary care environment. So if any of you or your families or whoever is eligible within the plan choose to come there, you have the right to come, but you can still go to your regular doctors if you want to. So it's not punitive, it is not coerced, it is a voluntary thing, just to emphasize what Doug said. So when you come in, you come for all your primary care. You get your labs, you get your x-rays. If you have an urgent care need, you can do that. If you need any of the extended program, get your pharmaceuticals. So it really is that hand-in-glove population health that you hear that term used. So our goal is to get people to come in more often voluntarily, not to pay a copay, because that's all part of the plan itself. Whereas if you went to your private doctor or someplace else, you'd pay your copay. So we give a carrot to get them to come in. And our goal is if we see them more often, then they get less sick less often. So the financial model is such that that's what drives the financial savings. But the delight, and I use that word carefully, the delight of the people who come in is it's pretty easy. They can bring their family in, they have it in one place. It is geared to the particular sponsor, in this case, the county, so that there is a direct relationship. We know what's happening. They feel it's their center, and it is. So when they come in, they become much more family. And Doug failed to mention one of the pieces of care coordination. So even if you have some complicated issue, you have a cancer or you need dialysis, you need something that is this very complicated, expensive care that you're seeking elsewhere. And we don't do those things on site. We're primary care. We have care coordinators who will then help you coordinate your own care or your family's care and navigate through where that might be the best place, where is, we call it our referral green circle, which are those who are vetted specialists in the area that work very closely with us, so we have a common medical record, Or if you just come in with a handful of bills and you can't figure out which ones you're supposed to pay because your husband or your wife is getting chemotherapy or getting some chronic care, people will help you, and they're part of the center, navigate through, even if you don't seek the care there because it's complicated care. So it really is trying to put an arm around primary care, but in its entirety, not just episodic, which unfortunately with many of the traditional, let me change the word, the current traditional, not necessarily the old traditional where it would be that put your hand on the shoulder and try to take care of the family and the person. Now, a lot of the primary care practices don't have that luxury anymore because you're coming in and it's very episodic care. And yes, they may treat your blood pressure, but it is not quite the same as having someone who that's where you can go. So we have a little bit of retro in the sense of the commonality and the awareness of who the people are. But we have the new edge approach that is managing the cost because it is all inclusive. You're not paying for the retail component of it for those who choose to come. And those who don't choose to come, you don't disrupt it. So as an organized approach as a body, nobody can come and say, you're taking something away from me. Because if anything, it is you're giving them an opportunity. They don't have to pay a copay, and they have a centralized care model. So it really is a different model, but it has worked now for a dozen years in a number of different all public sector forms, school districts, counties. And as Doug said, all of them have continued. Nobody has changed. And we continue to get a lot of interest because it really is the new wave coming forward of how can you manage cost, improve care, and have employees enjoy it. It's a parallel incentive. The unions love it, the people love it, the administrators love it, and the fiscal people love it. So everything's lined up. It's one of the only things I've ever been in medicine where you line up all aspects of it. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to get involved with it. But I'm not going to take any more time. I'm certainly willing to answer any questions, or Doug, if you have anything else you want to cover.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate Joe for a lot of reasons, but one is because he really is committed to providing best practice medicine, and we've seen it over and over again. When you see the Somerset County Partnership Health Center video, at that location, the number of visits of one sort or another, whether it's doctor visit, lab, x-ray, mental health, physical therapy, we're talking about in the average over the past 12 months has been 17,500. That's a lot of activity. So some might say, well, I already have my, primary care doctor. I don't want to go to the health center. Fine, you don't have to. But having so many services under one roof with no copay will win their confidence. And we've done it in every location where we've been. The reference here to zero-sum games is the fact that the only mechanisms that I'm aware that are out there in the general marketplace of brokers and consultants and health carriers is either the council wins and the employees lose, or the employees win and you lose in terms of financial zero-sum game. We think that's foolish. We think there's a better way to do it, and we're confident that the Partnership Health Center model is that pathway. I mentioned O'Brien's Law, which is a statement that it's one of those, Murphy's Law. I have a book at home called The Official Rules. And O'Brien's Law says that there comes a point in the life of every organization in which its ability to succeed in spite of itself runs out. That's where I think healthcare is today in the United States. And nothing proves that more clearly than what we're seeing now with mental health and the rise of mental health as a tremendous unmet need. We are the only entity of which I'm aware that has nested a mental health therapist within a primary care setting, a tremendous boon to people who don't know where to go. And there's no doubt about the fact that if mental health issues, substance abuse issues, behavioral health issues, all of those things that have to do with the mind aren't dealt with, the body will show the cost. So let me do this. Let me leave you with a thought that you are the perfect kind of entity to capture the financial value of better health outcomes over time, because your employees stick around. The average private sector employer changes healthcare systems every 18 to 24 months, and people move around from employer to employer. Yours stay. We want to give you that financial leverage, and we believe this is the way to do it. Let me pause there. You can go through the other slides appropriately, but they just emphasize the fact that the wheel that we want to give you is a round wheel. It's not a square wheel, and we'd be very pleased to do it. May I answer any questions? I'm sure that you have them at some point.
Mr. Gafredo.
Thank you for your presentation. So you spoke a lot about your business model and how everything works, but I'd like to know more about how it would work for the county. So what exactly does your health center inside our county look like? Is it a presence in the building, I'm assuming? And how much space would this take up? Go into detail as much as you can, at least.
Thank you. Great question. We try to and actually succeed in offering you the best of both worlds, in the sense that you are in the driver's seat. We operate on the basis that it's your money, your health plan money, yours and the employees. So whatever we do is something that requires your approval. Now, we also, of course, insulate you from liability. There are doctors and nurses who are accountable to Dr. Calabro. And we also protect you from being involved with HIPAA issues. We're governed by the same laws as anybody in terms of confidentiality. Other than that, all of the decision-making about hours of operation, site location, space size, the particular services that would be offered, ultimately would be approved by the county. The typical type of space that we would look for, it would be, for example, the Somerset County space is about 8,400. We are erecting as we speak Lycoming County space, which is 8,900 square feet. I would guess that a county of your size would want at least 10,000 square feet, perhaps a little more. But that particular location is certainly up to the county. Our job is to facilitate easy access. So we want, first floor, plenty of parking, a discrete entrance, and those types of access points facilitate the utilization patterns that we normally see, which are very robust.
Real quick, just touching on that, judging by the sizes of space that you described, in any of the other counties that had the 8,400, 89, how many personnel were working in a space that size?
Great question. We use a combination of both full-time, per diem, part-time providers. Again, we're talking about a very robust list. But there might be 22 people on site at any given point in time. And that includes, of course, the clinical staff as well as the front desk staff. The member advocate that happily Dr. Calabro mentioned, the member advocate is not strictly clinical, but we found that to be such an important role. Somebody can come in and, dump unopened envelopes. The particular example I would use happened in Somerset County, actually a dependent. He had been married 40 years. His spouse passed away. He was a wreck. He came in and had an armful of unopened, end-of-life bills for his wife, dumped them on the member advocate's office, said, please help me. I can't even open them. I don't want to see them. She took those, solved all those issues having to do with the negotiation with the carrier, making sure things were being handled properly. And then, as important in my book, she took him by the shoulder as a friend around the corner and got him into grief counseling for the therapist that was on site.
Have you seen this to lower any of the other counties that you've been working with, their health insurance premiums?
Absolutely. That's why we're here. It's nice to be able to offer sanctuary. It's nice to be able to offer better health care, but our purpose is to deliver better health outcomes, and that is the only way you can really save money.
So you're saving health insurance premiums after what, a reevaluation of all the employees as a whole, seeing better health trends, and they got lower premiums? Or your presence directly has an effect with the premiums with the insurance companies?
Well, you have a self-funded plan, which you have, and kudos to you for that. That's the right thing from an actuarial standpoint. Once you get above a few hundred employees, you should be self-insured. So what that means is that all of the care coordination initiatives, all of the penetration of the health plan on a voluntary basis that our providers and care coordinators arrange generate lower healthcare costs. It is an incredibly valuable leverage. We have very sophisticated population health tools. We happen to have a very accomplished physician who actually ran the Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield program for population health. And the metrics that are applied generate return on investment numbers, which I think is really what you're getting at, that are positive. And they're positive for two reasons. One is that there is a replacement cost. In other words, if somebody comes, somebody's child falls off a bike on the weekend, often right to the emergency room. Well, an emergency room cost is probably 6 times the cost of what it would be to go into the Partnership Health Center. That's the kind of savings that is what we would call replacement savings. It's a kind of claim that would have occurred on the outside and is going on today. And that's an important point to emphasize because all of the costs that we're talking about here, you're already paying for. You're already paying for the doctor's visits and the labs and the x-rays and the pharmaceutical supplies and the behavioral health visits. You're already doing that today in your self-funded health plan. What we're doing is taking them and putting them in a much more efficient bucket for purposes of finance as well as healthcare impact.
Okay, one last question. Are you charging as it's being used? Is it being, obviously, I'm sure you don't have much detail as far as what this county would want because you're in a proposal phase, but I see how you're saying we would save money, but if we don't get much use, obviously people need to be staffed there. We need to make accommodations through construction to make space for it. So we would be incurring a cost at all times with your presence, even if that space isn't being used.
Again, great question. I appreciate the way you think. The kind of costs that are involved are all pass-through costs, basically. Our management fees are fixed. All of the others are really a function of the hours of operation, the kinds of staff and providers that are there. They're salaried individuals, and that is incredibly important for a clinical reason. And the reason I say that is because we get really good providers. The medical directors that Dr. Calabro hires want to do what they went to school to be trained to do. some of them are the very best providers that you could possibly buy or hire because they're tired of fighting with insurance companies and getting second-guessed with regard to the kind of care decisions that they're making, or having a contract changed mid-year, or some other kind of encumbrance on them being good doctors. So our ability to engage really high-quality physicians and nurses and pharmacists and therapists is because they enjoy working in an environment in which they're dedicated to an employee population. They get to know the employees on a voluntary basis. It's not open to the public, it's dedicated to you, and they're salaried. So that kind of cost is fixed in that sense, but because the utilization is so robust, the numbers that I'm talking about that I alluded to in Somerset County, 2,000 events occurring at the facility in Somerville. That's a lot of activity. And we have enough data now to know that the first year we would expect about 6 patient visits per employee. Now that includes dependents, which means that you have a little over 2,000 employees as I understand it. So we would staff for about 12,000 visits during the first year. That will move up to beyond 7 in the second year, and by the time 36 months passes, it will be over 9. The numbers, as I mentioned, for Somerset County are 10. That means that the activities that occur there of one sort or another are robust enough that you don't have to worry about it being cost effective. That's part of the ROI calculation that we make. And the ROI calculation, generally speaking, the pandemic affected everybody, but generally speaking, we would expect an ROI number to be in a form that would be easy. You give me $1, I'll give you back $2. That's how that works.
That includes the cost of construction and everything that goes in the initial investment.
The cost of the construction, again, is a function of what the county's choices are, but I would say that the cost of construction is, it's not usually new construction, it would be retrofit of facility, county space or otherwise. And that number is such a small percentage of your healthcare budget, particularly amortized over a period of time, which is usually a minimum of 10 years, it becomes, less than half of 1%.
Thank you.
Mr. Cusick?
If I may add one more answer to, just the one point is in the startup. Again, we go back to the carrot, so that we have a very robust program that goes out and meets with all the employees and all the union reps and all the other people to educate them that this is what we're going to have on such a date. So that when we start, they're usually cheering because there's been so much pre-work to get them to the point where, hey, I don't have to pay a copay. I can have all this stuff. I can go there. So it's not like a typical de novo that you would see start up somewhere, that it kind of has to wait till things come in. There's a lot of that pre-work, and the excitement that gets built up is mutual on both sides. We take a lot of energy to make sure that you're not, one patient for 3 years. So we want to have it so we're kicking it off. And your other comment that you made, I think, the easiest way I think about it is the traditional around here is retail medicine. That's what you're paying for. This is kind of the wholesale approach, right? So you're cutting out a lot of it. So that's also part of what primes the pump for the savings. Yes.
Mr.
It also
Cusick?
allows me to say that things can happen fairly quickly in terms of getting a green light. Once the site is identified, all of 4 pathways begin in terms of development. One is the facility retrofit and equipment purchase. The second pathway, parallel pathway, simultaneous, is the recruiting of the good providers that I mentioned. A third is the data analytic work that we began in terms of identifying where your employees are going and why, and making some initial care coordination determinations so that we can begin, when the health center opens, to move people on a voluntary basis. Nobody has to ever do anything that we say. It's voluntary. And then the fourth is we meet with the public bargaining leaders. We meet with the employees to get them ramped up. We usually do that right after a contract would be signed, and then again close to when the health center opens. The reason we do it initially when the health center when the employees know that they're going to have a partnership health center, is we have to dispel two rumors right off the bat, and I find it remarkable that I have to say it more and 3 or 4 times. It's voluntary, because somehow rumors spontaneously combust, and they're making us go to a health center, and the implication is that it's the clinic. We don't use the word clinic, and the reason we don't is because, generally speaking, it's a pejorative term for public employees. We have a robust primary health care center called a partnership health center. So we have to say it's voluntary. It's voluntary to use one day and come back a couple weeks later. If you want to designate the medical director as a primary care physician, great. If you don't, that's fine too. And then we find that people are reassured on the voluntary side, and then they also need to be reassured on the issue of confidentiality. And I'm always amazed, but it's one of the issues that we have to put to rest right at the get-go, is that this isn't the employer doc in the box. This is a dedicated, HIPAA-governed healthcare center that is dedicated to the employees and not open to the public. They love the development of that culture of health, that sense of concierge service, which is really what we do.
Mr. Cusick.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Forrester. Just one thing for my colleagues, this concept is not anything new to this area. In fact, Bethlehem Steel had a corporate facility once upon a time in Bethlehem, actually. My question relates to your relationship with mega health networks. We have 2 dominant ones in this area, and I would imagine in Somerset County it's Robert Wood Johnson, Barnabas. Could you just describe how you interact with those large health networks as part of this process?
Excellent question as well. The purpose here is to promote the best and most efficient pathway to best health outcomes. So because we don't have any economic conflicts of interest, we have a lot more freedom than a lot of health systems do and hospital systems do. But I will say that one of the first visits that we make is to the local hospital to reassure them that we are not there to be disruptive. As a matter of fact, many of the medical directors that report to Dr. Calabro are put on the staff of the local hospital. And that's to facilitate the kind of care coordination and ease of referrals that is so important to care. With regard to the health systems with which the county may be contracted, we become, part of that team. But in terms of the team, it is important to emphasize that we don't have economic conflicts of interest. We don't get commissions. We don't get referral fees. We don't get profit sharing from local, hospital systems or carriers or any other vendor. And that exclusivity of relationship to the county, we believe, is one of our greatest strengths.
Okay. And then my other question is this something that any of your clients enroll retirees?
Those who have access to the health center are up to the county. Generally speaking, it is those who are enrolled in the county's health plan, but the eligibility list is given to us by the employer health plan sponsor. We do service some retirees. For example, in Somerset County, there are about 100 of them, and some of them actually are covered by Medicare because of their particular situation, and so we do bill CMS, and then to whatever extent there is a recovery of money, that gets credited back to the county. It's not a lot of money, but it's important because that, is the dedication of their health center.
So it would be up to us to decide if we wanted to
Yes.
offer this to retirees? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
What, I get the warm fuzzies and the touchy aspect of that the employees would prefer one stop
Yes.
all of that. But what's missing for me, and I would like you to comment on or provide further information on, is ultimately, how does this save the county money? Right, you mentioned an ROI, you mentioned it'd be over 10 years. But for what you're saying, basically, you're going to set up for lack of a better term, a corporate health center within the county, which is exclusive to our employees. You change the model, what that would typically be for what you refer to the doc in a box for, corporate. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to year over year, what has been the savings or the benefit to the clients that you have served, how quickly do those benefits actually realize? Because basically, from what I'm following, it's really going to be based on for the insurance carrier that we have, the number of visits, the charges against the plan that our employees go through, so on and so forth. And they have their own algorithms that they determine what the cost will be in projecting down the road. We reduce those number of claims, you see a benefit over time overall. But I would imagine in this state and age, there's a floor. You're gonna squeeze the box, you're gonna find some value, but where is that? What have you been able to demonstrate amongst the entities that you're serving right now? And you haven't talked any numbers, so I'm a little more nebulous about, it sounds good, but where's the demonstrated savings that you've been able to prove in the units you've set up now that across New Jersey and Pennsylvania? And after 12 years, you said you have data, so I'd like to see what the ROI has been for those entities that you've actually been supporting so far.
Sure. I touched on some of them. Let me see if I can bring them together in a succinct fashion. The particular mechanics of savings have to do with replacement costs within the health center, whereby the services that are given there by salaried individuals are less costly than the retail. That's the retail wholesale comment that Dr. Calabro made. So that is one thing. If somebody comes in and doesn't go to the ER, which actually isn't a very good place to get primary care anyway, and they come into the health center, that's a substantial savings and an easy one to measure. So there's a replacement cost piece, and then there's what we would call the care coordination piece, and that gets into population health actuarial algorithms that we'd be happy to unpack. And that is the 2 to 1 that I mentioned. You give us $1, we give you back $2. That's the kind of review that we're very pleased to give you and explain as best as you want. One of the nice things here is that we're very transparent because we don't have any economic conflicts of interest. We use a Johns Hopkins-based methodology for determining a return on investment. And I would like at the right time, the person who is particularly experienced in those kinds of calculations would be Dr. Valerian, that I had mentioned that we poached. I realize that's a sensitive term this afternoon, but he used to run Horizon's population health program, and those are serious actuarial and population health data analytics. But again, we consider ourselves stewards of your funds, and so all of the explanations are important, that we are able to report and persuade you. We find that there are some other particular interventions that we find very helpful. For example, about 25 cents of all of your healthcare dollars is pain management related. Even a little bit more on the RX side. And pain management, sadly, is often a function of patients being passed around like candy. An orthopedist, a physiatrist, to a physical therapist, a chiropractor, around again. And we happen to value all of those professions, and we have them all connected, either through the Green Circle that Joe mentioned, which is a particular direct-to-provider contracting that we can do, because we're not a network, we're not a TPA. We can find good providers that maybe are not in your current network, maybe nobody's network, because they hate networks. And we can actually contract to the Partnership Health Center in Northampton County and get some of those good people. So that kind of interruption of the merry-go-round on pain management is a real cost savings because there's a lot of abuse, particularly in the area of pain management. We also find that delays in getting care that is needed is part of the way that we can help that care coordination and lowering healthcare costs. For example, dermatology is a big issue with regard to the fact that it's very hard to find a dermatologist. The last conversation I had with Dr. Calabro is that we're talking about, maybe 10 weeks, maybe more, if you try to go out and get a dermatologist appointment. We can put dermatologists in the Green Circle on the condition that they see your Partnership Health Center, Northampton County patients quickly. Because if somebody comes to see Dr. Calabro, he does the primary care visit, and then he says, look, I don't like the look of that mole on your wrist. I think you need to see a dermatologist. Can we set one up for you? Well, unless somebody says, well, no, I got that covered. My next door neighbor is a dermatologist, and don't worry about it. That doesn't happen very much, but if they don't want to take our recommendation, they don't have to. But we can help set up those appointments quickly. That is a real savings because you know what the costs are associated with oncologists and worse. Those kinds of interventions are worth their weight in gold. Now, I've touched on a replacement ratio of saving money for costs that you already today are incurring. We talked about the care coordination piece. Those get put together in the population health data analytics that I referenced, yielding the return on investment. What that means, return on investment, is that if the cost of your health center, let's say, all in, including all the doctors and nurses and supply of pharmaceuticals, is $2 million, and we are giving a 2-to-1 ROI, that means that all other things being equal, we would lower your health care spend by $2 million. $4 million, but $2 million is for the cost of the health center. So that nets a gain of $2 million. That's how we approach these things. But what we find is that it can often be greater than 2-to-1, because when people start to have confidence in the providers, they come more often. There are multiple ways that we can generate savings, which are quite substantial.
So as follow-up, you mentioned Somerset County. How large of a county is that in terms of employee?
Well, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to have Mark Callagher, our VP of Government Relations. He was a commissioner in Somerset County, and I think he can give some of the details about kind of his own perspective of why he went down the path of a partnership health center.
Can I just, do you?
That's fine.
I'm really
I'll
concerned
withdraw.
about the
Yeah.
interest of time, and I want everybody to have their time to ask questions, and I know that I didn't even
withdraw.
get to this side. Well, if we could be very succinct, because I feel like we're getting too grandiose and not focused enough, so. if you could
Whatever
do that.
it works best.
Thank you.
I promise to be very succinct because I've been in your shoes and sat there, and believe me, I get it. I have 7 municipal budgets and 7 county budgets under my belt, so I've been in your seat. I understand it. And obviously, your healthcare spend is just a huge part of your budget. So the reason it was appealing to me, and by the way, Somerset County has 1,300 employees. It's a bit smaller than you, but it's still, the savings were there and are there. For me, it was, we'd see these budgets and there were really never any ways to save those healthcare dollars. We were self-funded like you, which meant that we were actually, shelling out the money for the visits. It wasn't insured, we were self-funded. So we were paying for every visit that someone made. And when I heard about Integrity Health, it just seemed like an opportunity to do something out of the box that could actually make an impact. So I will tell you, in the interest of brevity, it saved money for Somerset County and continues to, and we could, I'm sure Doug would appropriately could show you how and what the ROI has been, and the employees just love it. As a matter of fact, one of the retirees, who's the former county clerk there, I actually saw him a few weeks ago, and he said, don't you ever let them get rid of this health center, because they love it. They use it because it really is like concierge service for people. And, quite frankly, I can't use one of them. I wish I could, because it really is great. And if you ever have any one-off questions about it from someone who's kind of been in your shoes, I'd be happy to do it.
The range of employees ranges from the size of your county down to our smallest client is 850 employees.
You good? Mr. Heck?
Hi, thank you for the very expansive presentation, Mr. Forrester. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your patience.
Yeah. Anyway, I just have a couple questions. I like to make sure that it's crystal clear in my mind, so I understand. And I do appreciate your presentation in the sense that I know certain things. One of my colleagues mentioned the Bethlehem Steel, and one of the reasons I know people at work there, they had it was to reduce costs, and it was known as the company doctor, like the old coal mines used to have.
Right.
Which was pretty much a way to say, we don't want them to get workers' compensation, so go to the company doctor and he'll make sure that you're healthy. And I think that's something even to this day, I don't know with young people today, but you certainly want to dispel that. As you said, it's voluntary, they don't have to come in. But I do appreciate the way you explained it, it moved away from that old type of description. You're based out of Ocala, Florida? That's your
No, we're actually based in New Jersey.
Oh, it says your corporate headquarters were Ocala, Florida, Integrity Healthcare. That's okay.
Well, this is news to me. I don't know.
There might be more integrity. There might be more, and I may have.
You know what? I've actually run across this before. That is a name of a physician group, of orthopedists, I think. That's it. No, we're based in New Jersey.
Thank you. Speaking of which, how many, you mentioned Somerset, how many counties in Pennsylvania do you have that you're working with or in New Jersey besides Somerset?
Lycoming County is under construction and should open before hunting season.
Okay.
I've learned that's the time frame that I need to reference.
Well, you brought up an interesting point there when you said it under construction. So I just so I'm very clear, the county would provide the space for you. We'd either own it or we would lease it, and then you would take advantage of that, correct? That's part of the cost savings.
It is as the county would choose. We've done a variety of scenarios in that regard. If the county owns the space, it's easy. If the county does a commercial lease, likely we would be a sublease for $1 from the county.
It's the county's responsibility to get the building together.
We would help them do that. In other words, we try to make it as much of a turnkey operation as the county would wish. In terms of, we've been doing this enough time now. We know how to do schematics. We know how to do workflow, pick sites, things like that. But it's ultimately the county's decision.
And it's the county who'd carry the cost of the facility itself. Now, and this I'm not clear, but like you said, it's a one-stop. So you might have various equipment, like a CAT scan.
We would have an X-ray machine.
Would the county be buying the physical equipment as well?
Yes. In other words, there are a couple ways we've done it, either an outright purchase or a lease that would then become the county's property after a year. Pardon me, at the end of the lease for $1. In other words, the whole purpose here is that it would be your funds and become your property. We try to do that.
We'd probably sell the X-ray machine to you to take somewhere. I don't know where we would use it. But anyway, the other thing is a point of contact. And the reason I'm asking these questions is back in the 80s, I was one of the early HMOs I was put into. And it was a disaster because, the person in charge, you had a doctor who would decide if you could see this person, that person, this person. And in my case, this doctor said he could do everything from gynecology exams to dermatology. I mean, it was, and when I could get out of it, I was very glad. And I know we've come a long way since then. But if someone walks in, your point of contact person, is it a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant, or do they see a doctor?
Joe, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you.
Yeah, your concept of the old model of the HMOs where they're the no as opposed to the facilitator.
Yes.
This is completely the opposite. So you come in and there's a physician on staff. We have nurse practitioners on staff. Some are doing longitudinal care to follow blood pressure. Some are doing initial visits. The other professionals, the therapist, mental health therapist, the physical therapist. So whatever, it comes in first as a point of contact to the medical person. And then it gets farmed out to the others if they choose to do it. You may say you need to get physical therapy because you tore your ligaments in your knee.
Yes.
And they say, my sister-in-law is a physical therapist downtown. Or I used to use that one when I hurt the other knee. That's fine. You can do that. Or if you want to go here, it's a little more convenient. So it doesn't restrict you from going anywhere, but the initial point is with the medical person going forward. If you choose to have pharmaceutical only, you can just go and get your pharmacy. You don't have to see the medical people. If you have a prescription from your local doc, you can go in and it's cheaper.
And you have the pharmacy.
And we have a pharmacy
Right
that,
on
yes, we have a
site.
pharmacist on site and a pharmacy, not for controlled substance, but for everything other than the controlled substance to be able to come in. So it is that one point, and then it gets distributed out. Now, if you need a cardiologist, you need an oncologist, you need an orthopedist, then that's part of that referral green circle. We'll have those that we vetted, and those are, they will see the patients more quickly. We know that they're going to be able to accept what the fees are, but it's more a matter of knowing that they're the efficiency and the quality that we want to be able to send them out. But if you don't like any of them, you can go to whoever you want to go to.
Now, and you did point something out, which I think is important. Our employees, as the former commissioner knows, the ideas fly, and
Yes.
some people are saying all kinds of things. The confidentiality is strictly maintained. There's a barrier between the county
Absolutely.
administrators and you when it comes to.
There is a lock sealed, both figurative and literal. It is, now you can go in, whatever you choose to want to ask. We have the same restrictive, no, I'm sorry, you're in there, you're a patient, you're completely confidential.
Right, okay. And I only have, I think I have one last question, and I believe it's for Mr. Forrester, but thank you, Doctor. Right now, if I went to, you've heard, we have two big competing healthcare organizations in our valley.
I hear.
Say, you hear, if you drive a couple blocks, you'll run into one of their buildings. St. Luke's Healthcare and also
Lehigh Valley.
Lehigh Valley.
Yes.
If I go to St. Luke's North, for example, it's off Route 512, I can get pretty much everything you're saying under one roof. So the question I would ask you is, what is the advantage of going into your facility versus me taking my insurance card, let's say, and walking into St. Luke's North?
Great question. I'll answer it in a couple ways. One is that the customizable basis of what we're doing has given us a larger embrace of provider services than anyone I know of, including the hospital systems. Having said that, I learned something, and I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but I was obviously very gratified to hear it. I happened to be talking with who is the HR director in Lycoming County, who led the evaluation of us and concluded that all of the similar kinds of facilities, hospital-based facilities, were ones that made her feel like a commodity. And she realized that the dedication and the exclusivity of our accountability to the county was so important in terms of being able to deliver the kind of direct care services that we have and to be independent in our recommendations. She felt was both sound on a financial basis as well as critical on a human basis. that obviously made me feel pretty good, because that is a good account of why we are here.
So it sounds to me like your real point here is, while you can get clinical care wherever you walk into, like, let's say St. Luke's North, I'm not picking on them for good or bad, just using
Right.
them. Because I've had so many blood tests there over the years, I can't remember. You're saying we provide clinical care, but we also have what we consider a more expansive customer service relationship with the patient.
Well, I think that we actually provide more providers under a medical team. You usually don't have a pharmacy that reports, a pharmacist reporting to a medical director for reasons relating to very sound economic, laws. But to have mental health, a pharmacy, and physical therapy as part of the medical director's team is really unheard of.
Well, it
Now,
sounds like holistic. You have a more holistic approach to the person walking in the door.
I also think that that's true. And then the member advocate services. But the fact that there are no economic conflicts of interest there are really important. All hospitals are good at something, none are good at everything.
Okay, well, that's all I had, though. Thank you very much for your answers.
Is there anyone else who has a question? Ms. Zirinsky?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have one question. I do think there's one possible conflict of interest, and I'm not sure how this works. So I'm not sure who you serve, us as the county, as your employer, or the employees who would be the people that you serve. So for example, I come to you and I have a healthcare need. It seems like if it's rather routine and it's PCP-related care, no big deal. I assume you use a family practice model, or do you use pediatricians? Family practice?
Pediatricians at some of the places where there's a large pediatric.
You need to use a mic, sorry.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Yeah, it's family medicine based, but at some of the sites that have a bigger pediatric population, we have pediatricians as well.
Okay, so I come in, my family comes in, everything's great as long as we're at the PCP level, immunizations, et cetera. But say I hurt myself or I end up with cancer and now I need an FMLA or an IFMLA accommodation, or I have needed disability thing, then where does that go in your model? Because
Same place it does today. In other words, it's the specialist care. The providers will, I'm sorry. We don't change any definition of benefits in your health plan. It's an option, and then the providers at the health center would refer out. Now, remember, they're salaried individuals, so we are not submitting claims for process.
So you're not, but if I have a disability and I go to my doctor and I need you to do the write-off, that, like, you're the only people that disability will accept the report from, so who am I gonna go to then if I'm an employee? And I have a condition that requires me to be out or that needs that documentation.
Let me try to address, and that's a really good point. We do not want to be the principal and the student. And so in that regard, if somebody's coming in who needs a true workers' comp because the file fell down on them in the building down the hall, we will see them for the acute piece, but if there's some leave or some additional workers' comp, we do not have that same provider be on both sides. That's, to me, that's that conflict that you're suggesting.
Right.
In
Or
those
if
cases,
I have cancer.
yeah, well, if it's something like that, then they are going out within the referral network, or again, if you have somebody who's, it's really not going to work that way either. So if they choose somebody who's the workers' comp doc, or whatever it is, then they're doing the justification for that particular workers' comp case. We do not do that internally.
But cancer's not workers' comp.
No, if it's a different chapter.
I understand, but
If it's
I'm talking about regular healthcare. I hurt my back, nothing to do, I lifted something on the weekend, had
Right.
nothing to do with work, but it's still a healthcare issue, and I still screwed up my back, and it's hard for me to even drive, and I've got to be out for a couple weeks. Who's doing that documentation? Because that's your job as my provider.
For those, we absolutely will do that. If it's not a workers' comp thing, absolutely. And we manage it, and we manage it within the appropriate modality. The cancer patient is a little different because we are doing the primary care, and then we are suggesting referring to the appropriate within the hospital systems that you were suggesting before, that we have already created those relationships.
I want to make sure we've answered the conflict of interest question because I'm not clear if there would be.
Because as I'm now also your employer, and I don't want my employees out for FMLA for extended periods of time. No, it's not workers' comp if I have cancer. Correct. If I have cancer, if I throw my back out, it's not workers' comp. It's disability.
I think, put it this way, we would not be in any different position than any other provider who is doing that kind of review.
So you would serve me as the client and not me as the county? Who's coming first is my question.
Well, in terms of the county is funding the salaries of the providers. And those providers are exercising their medical judgment on an independent basis.
Okay. Any other question?
I do now.
Well, we did them there.
And Mr. Giovanni does too.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I saw a finger. You can talk. Don't carry bullying. Thank you.
This seems awfully expensive. And I'm not quite sure I'm quite getting this because we're going to you, and it sounds to me like there's limitations with what you're trying to deal with because you have a choice. Stay with what you got or jump into this program. How extensive is the care going to be from various other doctors?
Well, if I understand your question, you are already incurring these expenses now. So the only issue has to do with whether the structure that is being crafted in terms of a partnership health center is more efficient with regard to those kinds of services that you're already paying for. And that goes to the ROI question that we spoke about earlier. So the issue in terms of driving down healthcare costs, of bending the healthcare curve, isn't too much of a challenge because of the way in which the money flows today. You're already paying for the doctor visits and the labs and the x-ray, behavioral health, and whatever. All we're doing is putting them in a more efficient environment and dedicating it to your employees on a voluntary basis. Is that responsive?
It just seems to me it's all wrapped up in one nice little box.
We are trying to do that.
Yeah, and something's missing, and I can't figure out what the heck it is. It sounds to me like the county's getting involved in something that's really enormous, and it scares the hell out of me.
Dr. Barron.
Mr. Myers, so this is with since we pay all of our own health insurance bills.
We're self.
Correct. So what this would do is give our employees an option where they don't incur a copay. They do not, it doesn't track towards their deductible. They don't have to pay a deductible. However, we are paying for the care that is provided at the center. If our employees choose not to use it, that's on them. They can still go to their regular doctors, do everything else. However, if we get a certain amount of traffic there, which we will get because the employees have asked for this type of service. If you look at Teladoc, for example, when we introduced Teladoc, we save approximately $280,000 a year because people go to that free service. They don't go to their doctors unless they absolutely need to, and sometimes Teladoc refers them there. So now if we have a health center, since we've been so successful with Teladoc, we package these services up. We are paying one set fixed fee. And if that fee is, say, $2 million for the health center, to use a round number, and they're not going to the doctor, the health network, they're not paying the contractual rates, they don't have the copay, they do not have the deductible, we never run it through the system because we're already paying for integrity out of our already budgeted for health insurance trust fund, mind you. If we're spending $2 million and we divert $2 million of cost, we end up saving $2 million. So now that $27 million spend gets us, 25, we only caught that $27 million spend only costs us $25,000 or $25 million. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it sounds to me like we're starting a business.
We make no money, they make their fee that is contractual, and we will show that to you once we formulate the plan and look at all the numbers. We just wanted to bring this to you in concept at this time.
Mr. Barron, before you walk away.
Dr. Barron.
And I understand this is early, but next time this comes up or you want to give a presentation, I think some sort of presentation about how Somerset County has gone down and how long has Somerset County been? 4 years. 4 years. If you have any evidence beforehand and then during the 4 years, but my skepticism comes in place where it seems like we're offering this very big service, which will obviously have a lot of costs, and then the services that they'll provide, but it doesn't cover everything. So we're still going to be beholden to all the services that this can't provide. And it seems like some of the most expensive services are the ones that we will not be able to provide.
So
Surgeries, cancer, all the things that seem to rack up the most amount of health insurance dollars.
Understood, but if I go to patient first, that visit costs me $500, just for example. Emergent cares are very expensive. As a matter of fact, they're so lucrative, the health systems have gotten involved in them, okay? So that being the case, if I have the doctors already on staff that can do the urgent care visit based on the hours that they're available, they're exclusive to me, so I walk into that system, or that center that's exclusive to me, I spend $250 on that visit because I've paid for that service already to this provider. I've deferred that $500 worth of cost. Now, we will show you all those numbers. We are bringing you the concept because, as Ms. Vargo Hefner likes to say, they want information. Council wants to be included in this. We are including you in this.
Appreciate that.
Next month, when you see the financial numbers that we bring towards you and ask you for some sort of resolve, what you will see is a way to defer cost that gives the county employees sort of an exclusive place to go. Instead of a virtual space like Teladoc, this is now a virtual space. They mentioned the Bethlehem Steel Health Center. I'm a kid who went to the Bethlehem Steel Health Center. It was actually, you've been to St. Luke's North? That was the Bethlehem Steel Health Center. St. Luke's bought the building, and now they operate a center in there. And it was this exact model. It wasn't the company doctor, and it was a way to cut healthcare costs because Bethlehem Steel was going bankrupt. So
They go bankrupt, though.
they did.
That's why I'm a little concerned.
They did. I understood, but they had to cut healthcare costs. We don't have to. We want to make sure we could provide great health insurance at an affordable rate for our employees.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I really would like to move on because I have 2 other items under finance. So
I need
what
to
I,
ask the doctor a question. You only
Plus, I
did
got a
this with
meeting.
me.
well,
Yes.
no, do you need to stop taking it personally? Because what I was going to offer is that I think there's so much here to unpack that council should submit a list of questions since my name was evoked in the idea of information, that I think the information I would have liked to see are some numbers, and none of that was presented. So thank you, Mr. Gafredo. But because I don't want to hurt your feelings, I will let you ask the last question,
Thank you.
as you did for me in your meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you for letting me.
Oh, Jesus, Mary.
This is a clinical question, and in deference, I didn't want to ask Dr. Barron. I wanted to ask you. If I could wrap this up, what I'm thinking, and I see as I've listened to this, is that we talked about the cost of cancer treatment. Certainly, we know there's very expensive procedures.
Yes.
But what I see what you're saying and what your model is almost like an old timer. A lot of cost in healthcare goes into people walking in, basically your point of contact kind of cost. I go see the doctor. I don't feel good. My arm hurts. That is a big part right there. I mean, yes, you could go on to critical. You could, but wouldn't you say, doctor, that most of the visits really are like today, a sore throat, cough, people come in and you're able to get that, and they don't have to make an appointment or wait, or they don't go to the ER, which is just walking in the door, it's a few $1,000s. So you're really a primary care, what you said. Your whole point and your whole purpose is, we're gonna get you, walk in our door anytime you have to. We'll treat you, we're not gonna hold you back, but we know that most of the visits that people make to are not that serious in the sense of life-threatening.
Absolutely. The biggest majority are those primary care oriented. Granted, there are the extremes that could be common or not common for the oncology and for the various things, but the majority are the bread and butter visits, yes.
And people could just walk in, they don't.
Yes.
Thank you very much, I'm done.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brown, are you sure you don't have any?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, you asked him.
Oh, everybody's got feelings. Thank you for your time.
You're more than
I think
welcome.
if we can collect other questions that we could submit to you, we'd be happy to do so.
We're grateful for
Thank
any
you.
questions and this opportunity. We look forward to perhaps another time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now something I've waited my whole life to hear is a discussion of the Administrative Code Article 13 contracts, beginning with the Grace Industries via PennDOT agreement for the expedited demolition of Bridge 15 Meadows Road in Lower Saucon Township. Don't shake your head, Mr. Cusick. I've waited my whole life for
Push
this.
things along for this.
Is it gonna happen?
It's done. This is really, it should have been submitted a little sooner, but this is on the back end, because we already had a contract in place with PennDOT for this. This is really just a mechanism to reimburse the contractor.
All right, so it's down?
Yes.
Nobody called me to go watch.
Should cover that, kid.
Any questions regarding this?
I'll ask it in his committee because it's on the agenda.
All right, well, you'll report that. And so do I have a motion to move this forward so we can pay the bill?
So moved.
Thank you. Next, we have Wilmer Schultz for the Norbath Trail improvements, $321,750. And I forgot to state the other funds, so I'll state them tomorrow night.
Yeah, this is the third phase of the Norbath Trail improvements. This consists of replacing the decking on the 3 pedestrian bridges over the trail, as well as resurfacing the sections between those bridges.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
In reading through the detail on this, you put this out twice after bid attempts, right? You would think, why the lack of support for the project?
I think part of it was because some of the the scope of work included some bridge work as well as the trail resurfacing, and some contractors didn't feel comfortable doing the bridge work. So I think that's one of the reasons, and we just constantly hear too, the contractors are just swamped with projects right now.
And this contract, we require an apprentice program?
Yes.
That's part of the qualification for potential bidders on this?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion to move forward?
Motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? May I ask for an adjournment?
Adjourn.
Thank you. I believe we need to end and resume in 5 minutes so we can reset the computer. Thank you.
I think you're not alone. Yeah. I mean, you can feel alone.
For my bladder, I'm sorry.
Laura, you just feel comfortable cutting me off. That's all.
You need to just stop. You're such a baby. I love
Well,
you.
yeah,
but you're such a baby.
you know, you're comfortable saying, shut up, Ron, shut up. But you don't say it to other people. In fact, with John Brown, you go, John, you have to warn